Hey everyone, this week we're looking at the TTArtisan 50mm f2 Z lens. So I've come out this week to Freythorpe in the northeast of England, and I'm just going to capture some really casual shots walking about, maybe some at the beach. We're heading into Bridlington soon, I might get some street shots there. And really I'm just looking at this lens, and it's really interesting because it's a super cheap budget lens. It's really super small as well and really light, and I want to see how it performs. So I'm going to get some shots and we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go along. So in terms of build quality, this feels like a really well made lens. It is an all metal construction, and that's quite unusual these days. That's not to say that plastic lenses are low quality, but this does have an old school vibe that feels really nice. Even the lens cap is actually metal, which is really unusual. It is manual focus only, which is what you would expect for a non-CPU lens at this price point. And because it is a non-CPU lens, that means that it won't make use of the vibration reduction in the Z7 unless you go into the menu system and tell the camera what the focal length and the maximum aperture is. Once you do that, it will make use of the vibration reduction, so that's great. It's got a fully manual aperture ring, a focus ring, feels quite smooth, and the aperture stops are quite unusual because you go from 2, and then you've got half stop, and then another half stop to 2.8, half stop again, then half stop to 4, half stop again, and half stop to 5.6. But from 5.6 onwards, it's just a single stop, so you go to 8, 11, and 16. So I'm going to carry on, get some more shots, and we'll talk a little bit more as we carry on. So as far as performance and handling go, it is really light obviously and really small, so it's really nice to use. It makes the Z7 feel almost like a compact camera. It really is the smallest 50mm I've seen for the Z series, or one that works with the Z series of cameras. So that really is an achievement. And it's got a really nice smooth action on the focusing ring. I would say that goes for just over a quarter of a turn. The aperture ring is maybe a little bit small and sometimes hard to find, and that is quite fiddly to get hold of. It is quite small, but it is quite smooth, and you've got those clicks that feel fairly firm as you're turning, so that you know when you've clicked into the next aperture. It is a manual focus lens, so you're going to have to manually focus on all your subjects. That's fine with landscapes and things like that, but if you've got moving subjects, that can be quite difficult. I'm using focus peaking on the back of the camera. That'll highlight any in-focus subjects in red. I'm also using the magnification buttons so that I can zoom in on my subject and make sure that I'm really in focus close up, so that when I zoom back out I can get that shot and I'm really in focus. Overall, it is a no-frills lens. You don't expect too much from the performance and handling of this lens. It's got no buttons on the side, but as I said earlier, it will work with the VR if you turn that on in the menu system. So I'm going to carry on, get a few more shots, and then we'll wrap this up a little bit further down the way. So we're in Bridlington now, we're about to go get some fish and chips, but I've got enough shots, so I'm going to get those home, and the next time I talk to you, we'll have a look at those on the computer and have a look at the image quality. I'll see you back there. Okay, so I've selected a few images to look at in Lightroom here. First of all, we'll look at the sharpness. I've got a series of shots at different apertures here, and I've captured the town hall here. Firstly in the centre of the frame, more or less in the centre, and then in the second shot in the corner of the frame, just to compare centre and corner sharpness. So this is at f2. We can see in the centre, that's not bad at all really. That looks fairly sharp. I am at ISO 500 because it was quite a low light evening, so there is a little bit of noise in here, but considering, that's fairly sharp. However, at the corner at f2, just give that a little second to load, that is looking quite poor, as you would expect really from a cheap, simply constructed lens like this. So we'll go to f2.8 now. Again, pretty good in the centre. Down in the corner, it's a little bit better, still not great. This is at f4. Starting to look a little bit better in the centre. But most notably, we're starting to get a little bit better in the corner now. I actually think this one was a little bit out of focus. I kept the same focus between shots, but I was handheld. So if we look at the next one, this is at 5.6. Starting to look quite nice in the centre there. And you see down in the corner, we've also got some nice sharpness as well down there now. I missed f8, I'm not sure why, I went straight to f11. This is at f11. And you see down in the corner, also pretty good. So when you stop down, you can get some good sharpness across the whole frame, but as you might expect, at wider apertures, you are going to get softness in the corners. It's not a massive problem. If you're doing something like landscapes or architecture, you're probably going to use a narrow aperture anyway. And if you're doing something like street photography, for example, yeah, you're going to struggle at narrow apertures to keep your shutter speed up, but a lot of the time your subject's going to be in the centre of the frame, so I don't see it being a massive problem there either. So we'll look at bokeh now. I quite like the bokeh with this lens, but bokeh is something that's very personal anyway. You either like it or you don't, and people have got their own opinions, so I'm not going to say too much. I'm just going to run through these. These are all at different apertures, so that's at f11, f8, 5.6, 4, 2.8 and 2. So moving on now, we'll have a look at vignetting. This is at f2. So as you can see, there is some natural vignette in there. Not a massive amount we can do to stop that in camera. However, in Lightroom, if we come down to lens corrections, click on manual, we can bring down the vignetting slider here, or up rather, and that will get rid of that vignette. Still not 100% perfect, but if we just turn that on and off, quite a lot of difference there. And if we stop down the aperture a little bit, this is at f11, and you can see that's mostly gone anyway in camera. Might be just a little bit left there, but that's probably not an issue. I quite like vignettes anyway, I tend to put them on my images, so it's not a big problem for me, but bear it in mind, if you're not a big fan of vignettes, you are going to get some vignetting, especially at wider apertures. Okay, and finally we'll look at distortion. So this lens does have some natural distortion that comes with it. if we once again come to the lens corrections panel, you might notice if you just line it up with that grid, you can see that the horizon line just dips down in the middle. There's a slight curve. So we do need to correct that by bringing it down to -6. So that would be pincushion distortion. A lot of the time you're not going to notice it. Again, I don't think it's going to be a massive problem, and it's really easy to fix in Lightroom, as you can see. But bear it in mind, it is there, and if you're shooting something with really straight horizontal lines, you might notice some distortion. So the only thing that I wasn't able to test, and it's because I didn't get the right light on the day really, is flare and glare. I have read that there are quite a lot of issues with flare and glare with this lens, and that's probably because it is a budget lens. It's probably not got the special coatings, it hasn't got the low dispersion elements in there, so it can be quite a problem in those scenarios where you're shooting into the sun or you've got a backlit scene. Like I said, I didn't have the direct sunlight to test this out, and I wasn't able to reproduce it, or I wasn't able to produce it. So all I can say is just go out there, look at some other reviews online and see what the flaring issues are with this lens, because that could be make or break. So that was a great day out at the beach, and I really did enjoy using the TTArtisan 50mm f2 lens. As you've seen, there are issues with it, both optically and with the handling, but you kind of expect that from a lens that only costs between £70 and £80 here in the UK. And like I said, I don't really mind a lot of the issues, such as the vignetting and being manual focus only. It works perfectly well for landscape photography. The one thing I do need to check out is the flaring issue. Like I said, I just didn't get the right lighting conditions to try that, and that could be a deal breaker. But the one thing that it really does have going for it is its size and weight. It's only around about 200 grams, and as you can see, it's absolutely tiny. If you compare it to the 50mm 1.8 Z lens, there's just a night and day difference there. This is obviously far superior in almost every way, certainly optically, but there are times when you just don't need that superior quality, and if you want something small and light and inconspicuous, this is going to be the lens to choose. The only other thing that it comes close to is the 40mm f2 Z lens, and even that is bigger, so yeah, there's nothing quite like it for the Z series at the moment. So I would recommend checking it out. I should say that this video is not sponsored in any way. I bought this with my own money and this is just my own opinion, but for the cost, it's definitely worth checking out, and if you like travelling light, it could be a really good option. So there are just a few more images to show you, and I'll put those on screen now. So that's it for another video. Many thanks for tuning in and watching this one, everyone. If you watch every week, I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. And if you're new to the channel and you're not yet subscribed and you'd like to do so, you can just click down there on the big red button, or over here on this picture of me, and that way you'll stay up to date with everything I'm doing each and every week. There's a new video every Sunday morning at 10 AM UK time. So I hope you'll join me next week for the next one. But until then, thanks a lot everyone, and bye for now.